Chapter 161, 150 million. 50 million! The shout rang out like a bell and cut through the murmur of the auction hall. Conversation stalled. The crowd turned as one toward the second-floor VIP boxes. A middle-aged man in simple but dignified clothes still held his paddle aloft, his face set with a confident resolve to win. An assistant leaned in and whispered in his ear. A young man in casual clothes stared with his mouth half open, disbelief written across his face. The VIP box opened with 50 million? Their first bid is that high? Shock and envy rippled through the room. A woman in an elegant gown covered her mouth, eyes bright. Those people in the VIP boxes must have assets in the tens of billions. We can't even compare. Her hand trembled at the price. A man with gold-rimmed glasses pushed them up and murmured, "They didn't bid on anything else earlier, which means they weren't interested. Now they start 10 times higher. They're determined. We don't stand a chance." Heads nodded around the hall. The gulf between ordinary bidders and VIP wealth suddenly felt very real. On the stage, the ancient book rested under the lights, drawing the hungry gazes of everyone in the room. It was more than an antique. It was tied to the secret of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom's treasure. Lin Yang stared at it, brows drawn. The money gap between him and the VIPs was huge, but he couldn't step away. He took a breath, set his jaw, and lifted his paddle. 150 million. His heart hammered. His palms were slick with sweat, but his voice didn't waver. This was everything he could afford, a gamble that would decide whether he ever had a chance at the book. If he failed now, he might never get another shot. He wanted no regrets, and wanted everyone to see how far he was willing to go. Lin Yang's bid landed like a bomb. The hall fell into stunned silence, then erupted in whispers. Who is this kid? 150 million, 3 times the VIP bid. A well-dressed businessman frowned, turning toward his assistant, trying to pull a name from memory. There was no one they recognized. "He's young," someone else said, "but bold enough to take on those VIPs. A woman in a silk cheongsam peered down at Lin Yang with interest. Then a voice from further back supplied a clue. "He came in with Lin Bian. Maybe he's connected to him?" That suggestion set off a fresh wave of speculation. Lin Bian? The Lin Bian who has ties to Xiangnan's richest man? If so, this young man's not ordinary. Maybe he's backed by Xiangnan's richest, a bespectacled man said, and heads nodded. Xiangnan's richest was a name that carried weight. Xiangnan's richest? We're talking hundreds of billions, another piped up. If he's got that kind of backing, a bid of 150 million starts to make sense. Curiosity turned to cautious respect as the crowd reassessed Lin Yang. In an auction room saturated with money and influence, the young man in street clothes had suddenly become the center of attention. In a VIP box on the second floor, Liang Dingan lounged on a sofa, swirling a cup of green tea with a composed air. As Xiangnan's wealthiest man, with tens of billions and years of hard-won experience, he'd seen every scene the market could stage. Still, when the 150 million floated up from below, he frowned, a flicker of surprise crossing his features. "Who's that?" "Bold." He set his cup down and walked to the window to look down over the crowd. His gaze found Lin Yang quickly. Seeing the young man's determined expression, Liang's lips twitched into a small smile. So it was him. Liang had a sharp eye and a memory for people. He recognized why this book mattered to the young man, and he remembered a small kindness. The last time they'd met, Lin Yang had returned the only memento Liang had of his mother. The gesture had stayed with him. "Last time he returned my mother's only keepsake. I never properly thanked him." He murmured the thought, then decided. Winning this guidance art book and giving it to Lin Yang would be a fitting token. "Xiao Zhang," he said to his assistant, turning back to the box. "No matter what the final price, we must win this guidance art book." Xiao Zhang inclined his head. "Understood, General Manager Liang." Liang glanced back toward the young man below. "Young man, you owe me this favor now." Still, he believed in Lin Yang's potential. With that small smile again, he thought, "I expect you'll do well with it." On the surface, Lin Yang looked calm, but inside he was a bundle of nerves. His heart thudded, his palms slick with sweat. He knew the guests on the main floor wouldn't bid, and he had no idea about the VIP boxes on the second level. All he could hope was that whoever had just raised the price didn't care much for this Taoist health cultivation secret, the Taoian art, which might prolong life. That hope vanished the next second. 300 million. The voice from a VIP box cracked through the restless hall like thunder, sending the atmosphere into a new fever. The room froze for a beat, then erupted in murmurs and exclamations that swept across the space like a tide. As expected from a tycoon with tens of billions, what nerve to jump the price up like that? A stylish young woman cried, her eyes gleaming with envy. Her companions murmured approval, clearly impressed by the bidder's wealth. He's too young and too cocky, trying to steal the prize from the big boss in the box, a middle-aged man sneered. His tone sparked a ripple of derision directed at Lin Yang. Heads turned toward him, eyes gleaming with schadenfreude. He's got no status for this, like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, a bespectacled man added, full of condescension. Some in the crowd were simply curious, watching Lin Yang to see what he would do next. Think he'll bid again? He looks confident. Maybe he has a trump card, whispered a casually dressed young man to his friend. His last bid of 150 million didn't look like a joke. Maybe he does have backing, his friend guessed. Lin Yang's emotions churned under the scrutiny. He forced a calm expression, but he knew his funds couldn't match those of the top tycoons. To keep bidding would be like throwing an egg at a rock. He shook his head inwardly and prepared to let it go. Faces around him changed. Some wore satisfied smiles, as if saying, "I knew it." Some were disappointed, as if a good show had ended too soon. Others still watched him, hoping for an unexpected move. Just as everyone assumed the 300 million bidder would win, a firm voice rang from another box. 350 million. Like a lightning bolt, the new bid shattered the lull. The hall ignited again. All eyes shifted from Lin Yang to the new VIP box, excitement and shock on every face. This is getting good. Both big bosses want the book. A showdown's coming, someone said. Now that's a real auction. The earlier bids were nothing, another added. Whoever they were, the two bidders had deep pockets, far surpassing the crowd's expectations of the book's value. Their whispers swelled and receded like waves, everyone eager to see the fight. True to form, the bidding escalated quickly. Neither box gave ground. 400 million, 450, 500 million. Each number landed like a hammer blow. Tension built, breaths caught. As the price climbed, the duel intensified. 800 million, 850. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. At last, after a breathtaking exchange, the ancient book sold for an astonishing 1 billion. The announcement sent shockwaves through the hall. 1 billion? Who's rich enough to pay that for an ancient manual? A local boss gaped. It must be the richest man in Xiangnan, someone else said confidently. Heads nodded. In their minds, only Xiangnan's wealthiest could back such an extraordinary bid. As the crowd debated and speculated, the auctioneer's voice cut through the noise. We just received word that the buyer who successfully purchased the Taoist health cultivation secret, the Taoian art, wishes to present this ancient book to Mr. Lin Yang. May I ask who Mr. Lin Yang is? The announcement hit the stunned hall like an explosion. Conversation died instantly. Faces fell open in disbelief. Who in the audience could receive a 1 billion gift from a mysterious buyer? Lin Yang stood rooted, overwhelmed. He hadn't expected the book he'd longed for, then resigned himself to not to be his, to come to him like this. His mouth moved as if to speak, then stilled. Confusion, surprise, and an almost disbelieving joy flickered across his features. Under every astonished gaze, Lin Yang raised his hands slowly. His voice trembled as he spoke, but in the hush of the room it carried clear. I am Lin Yang. A wave of mixed emotions swept the hall. Envy, suspicion, curiosity, amazement. What kind of person was this young man to inspire such generosity from whoever had bought the Taoian art? Chapter 163. Close Relationship. In the auction hall, every pair of eyes locked onto Lin Yang as if he were standing under a spotlight. Speculation buzzed through the room like a swarm of bees. What's his background? How could Liang Dingan, the richest man in Xiangnan, spend 1 billion on an ancient book and give it to him? A middle-aged man in a tailored suit and an overhanging belly muttered, incredulous. Beside him, a woman in chic glasses chimed in, voice edged with envy. Liang's always been so low-key. He doesn't make friends easily, let alone hand over something that valuable. Lin Yang must be someone special. A cluster of younger spectators leaned together, whispering excitedly. Maybe he's Liang Dingen's illegitimate son, one said wide-eyed. Another scoffed. You're imagining things. Maybe Lin Yang helped him somehow, or holds some secret Liang needs. Whatever it is, that explains it. Across the hall, people replayed Lin Yang's bidding behavior, hunting for clues. When he first bid, he looked so sure, like he knew somebody would step in. An elegant woman in a cheongsam murmured, frowning. Those who had mocked Lin Yang during the auction now wore embarrassed, frozen expressions. The man who had sneered at him, calling him arrogant, had gone pale, sweat beading on his forehead as his hands trembled. What have I said? I've offended him. If he comes after me. He kept muttering, his legs nearly giving out. The man with glasses who had echoed the ridicule sat on pins and needles, his eyes avoiding Lin Yang. He replayed his words with growing regret, already imagining professional trouble if he'd provoked someone with hidden power. Others who hadn't joined the mockery quietly congratulated themselves. A casually dressed young man grinned and patted his friend. Good thing we didn't join in, he said. He doesn't look ordinary. Maybe we can get on his good side. A professional-looking woman cast a satisfied glance at the embarrassed scoffers. I knew he had confidence, she whispered. They were wrong. Before long, a stream of businessmen swarmed toward Lin Yang, eager to curry favor. A rotund chairman with a heavy gold chain introduced himself as the head of Earth Group, thrusting out a gilded business card. Mr. Lin, I've heard so much about you. Please, let me call on you sometime for a meal and a discussion, he gushed, clasping Lin Yang's hand with both of his. A stylish young executive with slicked-back hair elbowed his way forward next, flashing a dazzling smile. Mr. Lin, your connections are incredible. My company has a project that could really use someone like you. If you're interested, let's talk, he said, dropping a card and slipping a handwritten phone number into Lin Yang's hand. Business cards fluttered toward Lin Yang like confetti. Invitations and offers arrived in a steady stream. Once the flurry died down and the auction continued, Lin Yang lifted his head and looked up at the VIP box on the second floor. Shock and gratitude swelled in him. He hadn't expected Liang Dingen to be the one who'd bought the ancient book, or that Liang would present it to him so publicly. His mind drifted back to the first time he'd met Liang. He'd been a nobody then, only able to spend 100 yuan on 5 second-hand photo albums for a passing favor. He never imagined Liang would repay him in such a dramatic way. That gift was more than generosity. It was a public declaration that their relationship was special. Lin Yang realized the implications. Liang's gesture would open doors across Xiangnan. With Liang Dingen's backing, his future prospects here would be far easier. A surge of confidence and anticipation rose inside him. He inclined his head toward the VIP box, gratitude in his chest, and silently vowed that if the chance came, he would repay Liang Dingen's kindness. Chapter 164, System Upgrade. In the VIP box on the second floor, Chen Qingqing had not taken her eyes off Lin Yang since the auction began. The surrounding clamor, the chatter of lacquered tycoons and celebrities, the soft footsteps of servers, faded into a blur. In that moment, there was only Lin Yang and his every move. When the host's magnetic voice rang out and announced, the buyer who won the bid has decided to donate the ancient book to Mr. Lin Yang free of charge. Chen Qing felt as if she'd been struck by an electric shock. Her normally composed posture stiffened, her eyes widened in disbelief, and the surprise made her features even sharper. When had Lin Yang met Uncle Liang? And the two of them seemed to be on such intimate terms. She frowned, unconsciously knitting her brows into a tight crease. Her carefully applied makeup seemed to pale under that expression. She replayed every moment she'd shared with Lin Yang, searching for any hint that could explain this scene. But no matter how she tried to connect the Lin Yang she knew with someone being lavished upon by Xiangnan's richest man, Liang Dingen, nothing fit. On stage, the host gave a subtle nod toward the Gyeongsam-clad attendant waiting nearby. The woman understood at once. Cradling the ancient book as if it were the most precious treasure, she glided forward. Her every step was graceful, the slit of her dress revealing a glimpse of pale calf with each measured pace, but all eyes were fixed on the book she carried. Lin Yang stood and accepted the book with a polite smile. "Thank you," he he said softly, quiet but clear enough to carry through the noisy hall. There was a trace of eagerness in his steady eyes, a hunger for whatever secrets the volume might conceal. After the attendant had turned to leave, Lin Yang sat back down and set the book on the table in front of him. He opened the cover with extreme care, as though the pages might crumble at any careless touch. His gaze combed each page with the sharp scrutiny of a prospector searching for a vein of ore. He was looking for a hidden interlayer, some secret compartment or fold. Page after page revealed only dense, obscure ancient characters on yellowed, brittle paper. There was no interlayer, no obvious seam. Lin Yang's brow tightened in puzzlement for a moment, but he quickly composed himself. It would be suspicious, he thought, if the secrets of a volume coveted by so many were left in plain view. He closed the book slowly and slipped it carefully into his bag, then lifted his head and watched the rest of the auction with the calm air of any other spectator. The auction moved on like a well-conducted orchestra. The auctioneer set the tempo, each fall of the gavel a drumbeat that quickened the room. Items rose in value like steps on a staircase. Exquisite artifacts starting at 5 million, calligraphy and paintings later at 20 million. Each lot drew new bids, and the competition grew fiercer. Lin Yang scanned the lots with interest. He wanted to raise his paddle a few times, but the reality of his finances smacked him like a bucket of cold water. Despite recent gains, the resources he could deploy in a room full of seasoned bidders were insufficient. The realization dampened his impulse to compete. He let his thoughts drift. When he had been living an ordinary life, he'd pictured a few tens of millions as the key to freedom, enough to buy a roomy house, a luxury car, travel at will. But his rise in status had raised the bar for what counted as freedom. Attending high-end dinners meant clothes and accessories that were expensive in their own right. Negotiating business deals could cost the equivalent of several months' wages. The car he drove and the brands he wore all became signals of status. What had once seemed plenty now melted into routine expenses. The higher he climbed, the more money felt like a necessity rather than a luxury. He shook his head to clear the tangled thoughts. With the intelligence system on his side, given time, true financial freedom was attainable. He breathed in, reset his mood, and watched the procession of tempting items with cool detachment. Time slipped by until the clock hands neared 11. The auctioneer's final hammer fell, and the evening's excitement wound down. The once bustling hall became orderly again as guests rose and began to leave. Some tycoons continued to debate the night's bids as they walked, still flushed with the thrill of competition. Others hurried away, already on to the next engagement. A few left tired but satisfied, certain the night had been worthwhile. Lin Yang stood and patted his bag where the ancient book lay. It felt heavy in his hand, both in weight and in promise. He watched the crowd thin and thought about the evening. At first, he'd been questioned and mocked. Then Liang Dingan bid $1 billion and gifted the book to him. The whole reversal had shown him how warm and cold human dealings could be. But what mattered to him wasn't other people's opinions. It was the book and the secrets it might hold. The next morning at 7, Lin Yang woke to the system's chime. Ding, this week's intelligence has been pushed. Please check, host. It was a new week, and the weekly intelligence feed had arrived. If he read one more piece, the system would upgrade him to the monthly intelligence package. The key difference between the two tiers was the scope. Weekly intelligence covered the coming week's events, while monthly intelligence expanded the window to forecast the coming month. Chapter 165, Last Minute Bid. Lin Yang opened his panel to check his weekly intelligence and saw he had received a total of 5 pieces this week. He didn't hesitate and chose to reset the intelligence immediately. Although resetting could sometimes reduce the number of pieces, using the reset function 3 times in total would guarantee a high-value intelligence piece. One high-value piece was worth the equivalent of at least 10 ordinary pieces, so unless he'd already pushed the total to the maximum 10 that week, he never hesitated to reset. Ding! Weekly intelligence reset complete. He checked the panel again. His luck was middling. The number of pieces hadn't changed. It was still 5 after the reset, but the reset function had now been used twice. One more use would produce a high-value intelligence. He chose to accept all 5 items and began reading them one by one. Weekly Intelligence 1, a Taoist health preservation manual, Daoyin Shu, will appear at the Mount Lu Peak auction on Saturday. The whole ancient book is written on silk. By peeling apart the surface layers of the pages, you can obtain the password to the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure hint map. Silk? Lin Yang had never heard of an entire book written on silk. He pulled out his phone and searched for information on silk paper. More valuable than gold, and once reserved for royalty, silk paper is something ordinary people never touch. That's why ancient paintings in museums survive for centuries. They're backed with layers of this silk. True silk paper uses the first threads spun by virgin silkworms. Silk from 20 silkworms barely makes a sheet the size of A4. After soaking, pounding, dyeing, and 9 other processes, the finished sheet is translucent but resists ink bleeding, and it won't worm-eat or become brittle for 1,000 years. Multiple layers can be bonded together with fish maw glue to form a single sheet that resists moisture and aging. The ancients used these hidden interlayers to conceal lost characters, paintings, or confidential information. Reading that, Lin Yang realized silk paper could hide interlayer secrets inside what looked like an ordinary ancient book. The articles explained that sheets could be glued together, but didn't say how to separate them. Delicate work like that required specialists. Lin Bian should have those connections. He called Lin Bian, explained the situation, omitting any mention of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure, and was pleased when Bian said he could find someone to separate the layers. Since they were both in Sing City, it would be easy to hand the book over. They arranged a time to meet. Lin Yang moved on. Weekly Intelligence 2. A mutated monstera has been found in the demolition ruins of Jinling Community, slightly left of the original community central garden. It can be collected before the ruins are cleared this weekend. Mutated monstera? He'd seen photos at a tropical plant exhibition. A half-meter monstera price tagged at 2.7 million and still scarce. A plant with 1 mutated leaf once sold for 5 million and made headlines. As living standards rose, people's spiritual pursuits grew too, and businesses turned plants into subcultural status symbols. Through genetic selection, individual styling, and massive investment, a plant could be transformed into a pricey collectible. High-end collectors gladly paid dozens or hundreds of times what a normal person would consider reasonable. Where a circle forms, hierarchies form. The prestige of the circle made outrageous prices seem justified. Orchids had once been the rage, a prized specimen worth 4 kilograms of gold plus a villa, and even after the market collapsed, the social mechanism remained. It simply moved on to succulents and tropical plants. Right now, tropical plants were hot, and monstera was king. A mutated monstera was the emperor. Selling one was easy. Demand was guaranteed. He didn't know how such a valuable mutant could be in the Jinling community ruins, but the chance to claim it for free was too good to pass up. He would have liked to head out immediately, but the intelligence said the plant could be picked up before the weekend demolition, not right this instant, so he read the rest. Weekly Intelligence 3. Binjiang No. 9, a famous building in Xing City, will be auctioned online. Due to the poor economic situation, no one has joined the bidding, and the auction is expected to fail. If you submit a bid 1 second before the auction ends, you can obtain ownership of Binjiang No. 9 at the reserve price. Binjiang No. 9 was a well-known unfinished tower in Xing City, 36 floors, structurally topped out with a unique riverside view. Its developer had liked the capital scene so much that when his cash flow broke, construction stalled and the building was left unfinished. Ordinarily, a riverside building like that, even in shell condition, would attract many buyers. But the real estate market had been weak and investors wary, so it made sense the auction would fail. Lin Yang remembered Hu Qian had told him a few days earlier that all the preparations for starting their investment company were done. They just needed an office. Why not bid for this building, spend some capital to finish it, and use it as their office? It was also an investment. When the economy recovered, the value would rise. Buying it at the reserve price now could mean a bargain. The intelligence specifically noted that bidding in the last second would secure the reserve price. Lin Yang considered why that detail mattered and quickly understood. Sniping the auction in the last second left no time for others to react and outbid you. If the auction lacked participation and your single last-second bid met the reserve, you'd take the property at that price. It was a cheap but effective tactic in a thin market, a perfect way to seize a prime asset with minimal competition. Lin Yang had heard that online auctions often used shills, people who bid to drive up the price. The trick was to bid at the last second so the shills had no time to react, letting you close the deal at the reserve price. He took note of the Binjiang number 9 online auction time, then read the last two intelligence items. A chime sounded in his head. Ding. Weekly Intelligence 4. Foodie battery continues to hit daily limits. The China Securities Regulatory Commission has issued an abnormal stock price warning. Trading will be suspended for 1 week. Since Foodie Battery announced imminent mass production of their solid-state battery, its stock had skyrocketed despite occasional rumors. It had been hitting the daily limit every trading day. Its market value had climbed from a few hundred million to over 10 billion. Lin Yang owned 44% of Foodie Battery. His paper net worth was already in the billions. He planned not to touch those shares until the company's market cap broke 1 trillion. Ding. Weekly Intelligence 5. A Weltmeister EX5 being sold by Yongcheng Used Cars at Zhongnan Automobile World in Xing City has 10 kilograms of gold hidden in its drive shaft. The buyer will get all the gold. Weltmeister, wasn't that the new energy car company that went bankrupt 2 years ago? After its collapse, its cars went unsupported and prices cratered. You could buy a Weltmeister for 10 to 20,000 yuan. Who would hide 10 kilograms of gold in a drive shaft? At current rates, 10 kilos of gold was worth about 7.2 million yuan. Paying a few thousand to pick up over 7 million sounded like a guaranteed profit. He made a mental note to find time to check that car out. Another system chime followed. Ding. The intelligence system has been successfully upgraded. The current system is now monthly intelligence. The system will automatically push 3 to 10 pieces of intelligence each month. Ding. System level upgraded to monthly intelligence. Superintelligence unlocked. There is a chance superintelligence will appear in the system's automatic pushes each week, or 1 piece of superintelligence will be granted for every 5 uses of the system's reset function. The system had upgraded again, weekly to monthly, and with it, superintelligence was unlocked. Lin Yang checked the panel. Monthly intelligence, 3,000. Upgrading to annual intelligence required 30,000 experience. He'd find out that reading a piece of monthly intelligence gave 1,000 experience points, so 30 pieces would upgrade the system, if luck favored him, in 3 months. Otherwise, it might take up to 10 months. He figured superintelligence would be a tier above high-value intelligence. Those were worth about 40 to 50 million yuan each, so a superintelligence might be worth over 100 million. That was only a guess until he actually received one. From daily to weekly, he had received dozens of items, but only a few high-value pieces. Superintelligence didn't seem likely to appear often. However, the reset function provided a path. Every 5 uses granted 1 superintelligence. He already had 2 resets recorded, so after 3 more uses he'd get 1. With the upgrade to monthly intelligence, the system's pushes would now cover the entire next month instead of the next week, and each piece's value had increased accordingly. Ding. Monthly intelligence has been pushed. Please check. This was his first monthly intelligence push. He opened the panel eagerly. 7 pieces had been pushed, more than usual. He clicked reset without hesitation. Accumulating 5 resets to get 1 superintelligence was too good to pass up. Ding. Monthly intelligence has been successfully reset. The intelligence count dropped from 7 to 6, a small acceptable loss. Monthly Intelligence 1, the Mount Lu area of Xing City, will create an educational integration demonstration zone. Sunshine Lijing residential area has been designated in the catchment area for Mount Lu Primary School and Mount Lu Middle School. Once the announcement is made, housing prices will surge, doubling in a single day, and demand will outstrip supply. Buying property before the end of the month will yield double returns. Holy cow. Monthly intelligence was definitely different. He'd used a high-value intelligence to learn about the Jinling community demolition and had bought all available properties to receive 10 times compensation. This new tip wasn't inferior. Sunshine Lijing was a large development, at least 10 times the construction area of Jinling community, with many more units available. Current prices were already about 8,000 yuan per square meter. If they doubled to 16,000 overnight, a 100 square meter unit would yield an 800,000 yuan profit within a month. 10 such units would be 8 million, 100 would be 80 million. Crucially, the intelligence said supply would be tight, so the properties could be cashed out quickly. The only uncertainty was how many available units there actually were and how to acquire them all. After reading the first piece, his system experience updated. Monthly intelligence, 1,000, 3,000. 29 more pieces, and the system would reach annual intelligence, maybe faster if luck favored him. Monthly intelligence 2. Foodie battery will be suspended for 10 trading days. When trading resumes, it will continue hitting daily limits, leaving no opportunity for outsiders to get in. Previously, the system only predicted stock movement for the next week. Now it could project a whole month. This explained the suspension. If it hadn't been suspended, Lin Yang's net worth would have grown by about 20% every trading day. Monthly intelligence 3. Accounts. Xiaoniu Shuoche, Boss Kai, Yuan Qikong, and 10 others are using black PR tactics to slander, undermine, and maliciously defame the 3YC brand and its products. Join the Black PR group as a behind-the-scenes financier to collect evidence and report to 3YC. Each exposed account will receive a 5 million yuan reward. Chapter 167. A gentleman is innocent, but he is guilty of possessing a treasure. The intelligence feed showed 10 accounts in total. If I could get into the Black PR group, I could pull the evidence. Each account carried a bounty of 5 million, 10 accounts, 50 million. After reading 3 monthly intelligence reports in a row, Lin Yang had a clear picture. Each monthly report was worth on the order of 50 million, give or take. That was 10 times the value of a weekly report and on par with the old high-value intelligence. No wonder the high-value items had vanished, replaced by these super reports. Monthly intelligence 4. Sing City's Metro Line 8 route will be announced at the end of the month. There are 3 abandoned gas stations owned by Mount Lu Holdings along the road. If acquired in advance, they qualify for tenfold compensation. Lin Yang checked online. The investment cost for a gas station ranged from 1 million to 20 million depending on location and size. He didn't know the exact prices of these 3, but by his estimate they'd cost about 5 million total. Tenfold compensation would be 50 million. That matched the report's apparent value. With the system upgraded to monthly intelligence, the first 4 reports alone had already yielded at least 150 million, orders of magnitude beyond what weekly reports ever delivered. He found himself eagerly anticipating what a superintelligence report might be worth. 500 million, a billion, or even more. He also wondered whether, when the system eventually upgraded to an annual tier, the valuation would leap again. Monthly intelligence 5. On the 17th of this month, while inspecting his factories by helicopter, Liang Dingen will have an accident. The helicopter will crash and the occupants will die. Refusing to board will prevent the accident. Helicopter crashes weren't unheard of. There had been a famous entrepreneur years ago who crashed into the Xiang River. More recently, a senior executive and his family died in a chopper accident. If this had been anyone else, Lin Yang might have shrugged it off. As the richest man in Xiangnan province, Liang Dingen's aircraft would undergo the most stringent checks. Anyone who insisted his helicopter would crash would seem alarmist, possibly even mad. Such a claim could ruin a carefully built impression in an instant. But Lin Yang couldn't ignore this. The day before, he had spent 1 billion to win an ancient book at auction and had publicly gifted it to Liang, championing him before all the province's influential figures. He couldn't stand by now. If this intelligence was right, he had to invent a plausible reason to keep Liang from boarding that helicopter. Saving a life would be the highest repayment for the favor. Monthly intelligence 6. Metro Line 8's route has been released. Binjiang No. 9, an unfinished building, sits directly above Binjiang Station and its value will soar. This will attract intense competition and cause some parties to resort to extraordinary measures. Binjiang number 9 was going up for online auction this week. The intelligence predicted Lin Yang would swoop in at the last second and secure it at the reserve price. That is, it would be effectively his for the taking. But once the Line 8 announcement made its value explode, many would covet the property, and some would use unscrupulous means to seize it. An unfinished building that nobody wanted could, with the release of one piece of news, become a flashpoint for greed. Lin Yang had seen such things before. A leading enterprise in Xiangnan with strong momentum had been targeted by envious rivals and ended up stripped and its people ruined, even imprisoned. It was the old axiom, an innocent man can be perfect, but once he possesses a treasure, he becomes guilty by envy. Lin Yang finished reading all 6 intelligence reports for the month and gained 6,000 experience points. He glanced at the system panel. Monthly intelligence system, 6,000, 3,000. He needed another 24,000 experience points to reach the annual intelligence system, meaning in effect, 24 more monthly reports. Today, the system had pushed 11 pieces of intelligence in total, 5 weekly reports plus these 6 monthly ones. He sorted them by urgency and temporal impact, then began planning how to use each. First on the list were the quick wins. There was a mutated Monstera deliciosa growing in the demolition ruins of Jinling community, an exotic tropical specimen he could retrieve free of charge. It would fetch millions at resale and could open doors into subculture circles and connections. Then there was a Weltmeister EX5 at the Zhongnan used car market. The vehicle itself, barely worth 20,000, but reportedly hiding 10 kilograms of gold, about 7.2 million in value. Paying 20,000 to net 7.2 million was a no-brainer. After securing those, he needed to meet Lin Bayan and give him the ancient book he'd bought at auction, asking him to find experts to decipher its secrets. Next came the online auction for Binjiang number 9. He'd position himself to win at the reserve price, then brace for the fallout as its market value skyrocketed over the following month. Other tasks followed, buying every available unit in Sunshine Legion residential area before the school district announcement. Once the district lines were public, those properties would likely double in value. Then he would collect evidence on the black PR operation and hand it to 3YC for the bounty. 5 million per account, 50 million if he could expose all 10. At the same time, he needed to acquire the 3 abandoned gas stations to claim the tenfold compensation. 2 matters stood above the rest, and they were linked. Preventing Liang Dingen's helicopter inspection was not just about repayment. Saving his life would deepen their relationship. The connections that powered Liang to become the richest man in the province were immense. If Lin Yang earned his gratitude, those connections could protect him when Binjiang number 9 attracted predatory forces. From the photograph incident, he already knew Liang valued loyalty above most things. He arranged the plan in his head, the quick pickups and auction maneuvers first, then the property sweep, followed by the cleanup of the black PR cells and the gas station acquisitions. Finally, and most delicately, the measures to keep Liang Dingen grounded on the 17th. If he pulled it off, the rewards, financial and political, would be enormous. If he failed, the cost could be much higher than the money at stake. Chapter 168. Fortunately, you don't know the goods. After reading through the intelligence, Lin Yang stretched and blinked the last traces of sleep from his eyes. He headed to the bathroom. The steady rush of the shower set the tone for the day. After a quick breakfast, he grabbed his car keys and walked to the garage. The car rolled out, and he drove the few minutes to Jinling Community, a short distance from the Binjiang Bay neighborhood where he lived. He'd been itching to get here ever since he received the tip. A mutated monstera, allegedly worth millions, was sitting among the demolition debris of the community. For Lin Yang, focused on building wealth and connections, this was a once-in-a-lifetime find. Recover it, and he'd not only make a small fortune, but also gain instant credibility in the hot plant subculture and meet potentially valuable contacts. The scene when he arrived was a far cry from the lively complex he remembered. The familiar buildings had been reduced to a jagged wasteland of rubble. Collapsed walls, loose bricks, and exposed rebar lay tangled under the sun. The once flat roads were pocked with excavation scars. Scavengers threaded their way through it all, bending to pick through the remains for scrap, rebar, iron, digging thoroughly and moving on when nothing turned up. Some left with their arms full, faces bright, others kept searching with grim determination. Using his memory as a guide, Lin Yang stepped over broken masonry and made his way to the community's former central garden. An open space now marked the spot where trees once stood. Only circular pits and displaced planters remained. A few potted flowers, roses and the like, still bloomed, swaying gently in the breeze as if reminiscing about better days. A group of elderly residents were selecting plants to save and chattering about gardening. "This rose is gorgeous. It'll look wonderful on my balcony," one woman said, smiling. "Yes, they're all good plants. They'll clear this place tomorrow, so grab a few while you can," an older man advised. "Those roses would cost a pretty penny at the market," another joined in. When Lin Yang approached, they greeted him warmly, but his eyes were scanning the flower beds. Then something caught him. A monstera about half a person's height, and it stopped him cold. This plant was nothing like the ordinary monsteras Lin Yang had seen. Instead of a single flat green tone, the leaves were a painter's paradox, white and green braided together in irregular, stunning patterns. The white patches were pure and shimmering in the sunlight. The greens were deep and vibrant, like compressed life. The leaf edges were not smooth, but waved with deliberate undulations, each curve perfectly placed, as if someone had carved them. The fenestrations, those iconic holes, varied in size and were scattered in a highly aesthetic arrangement, like constellations or enigmatic runes. It was unmistakable, the mutated monstera described in the intel, the one worth millions. His pulse jumped and a surge of excitement washed over him. He glanced around. No one seemed to be looking at the monstera. Relieved, he moved in with practiced stealth, scooped the pot into his arms, and cradled it like a prize. The older folks nearby stared in confusion when they saw him lugging a monstera instead of choosing any of the blooming roses. "Young man, you don't know what's good for you," one of them grumbled, a hint of exasperation in his voice. "Look at those roses, colorful, fragrant. What's so special about a green plant?" "Exactly," an elderly woman said, casting disdainful looks at the plant in Lin Yang's arms. "Monsteras are everywhere in the green belts. You can get them for 5 yuan at the flower market. Why bother hauling one of these?" "Take some roses instead," another advised earnestly. "They bloom for a long time and keep coming back. A monstera isn't nearly as valuable. It's not pretty, it takes up space, and guests might think your taste is poor," someone else muttered, covering her mouth. Lin Yang only smiled and said nothing, inwardly amused. Fortunately, none of them knew the plant's true value. If they did, the story would be very different. He tightened his arms around the pot, as if fearing someone might change their minds and try to grab it. "Grandpa, Grandma, I just like simple plants," he said lightly. "You all take your time. I'll be off." He left the demolition site with the mutated monstera secured in the passenger seat. He didn't head straight home. Instead, he drove to Zhongnan Automobile World. There was a second target waiting, a used car rumored to have 10 kilograms of gold hidden in its drive shaft. Buying that car was the next step in his plan. Chapter 169. Buy a used car. Lin Yang drove straight to Yongcheng Used Car in Zhongnan Automobile World. As he entered the complex, his brow tightened. Cars were packed so tightly on both sides of the road that there was almost no space between them. Many were parked crookedly, some jutting into half a lane, leaving only a narrow slit for traffic. He had to thread his way through like a needle. He eased the car forward at a snail's pace, hands tight on the wheel, eyes flicking constantly from the windshield to the side mirrors. One wrong move would mean a scratch and a lot of trouble. His progress was measured in painstaking centimeters. Then, inevitably, a car appeared coming the other way. Lin Yang let out a resigned sigh and braked, searching for somewhere to reverse and give way. Backing up wasn't any easier. The rear was clogged with vehicles, too. He inched the car back inch by inch, turning the wheel with extreme care. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he checked the rearview mirror and side window, counting the gaps. After a tense few minutes, he found a slightly wider intersection and reversed into it, letting the oncoming car pass. He thought it was a brief interruption, but the next 10 minutes repeated the scene again and again. Another car, another standoff. Each maneuver frayed his patience a little more. He'd hardly driven 100 or 200 meters, but it felt like an ordeal. Finally, he emerged onto the main road outside Zhongnan Automobile World and discovered a parking spot. He left his car there and walked to Yongcheng Used Car. "Hello, sir. How can I help you?" a young man asked, stepping forward as Lin Yang reached the storefront. Lin Yang looked him over. The face was oddly familiar. Then recognition hit, and he asked tentatively, "Xie Chen?" The young man froze, stared at him from head to toe, and then blurted, "Lin Yang?" A smile spread across Lin Yang's face. "So you're in Xing City too?" Xie Chen blinked, then brightened. "Yeah, Xing City is the provincial capital. More opportunities here. You look different from school, more confident, more put together. I thought I recognized you, but I wasn't sure." He clapped Lin Yang on the shoulder. "Good timing. You're already looking to buy a car 2 years out of school? Do you have a model in mind? We have the most complete used car selection in Zhongnan. Every brand." "I'm thinking a new energy vehicle," Lin Yang said, without naming a model. He wanted to see what the lot had first. "New energy's the way to go. Different league from gasoline cars, full of tech. Follow me. Those are parked in a separate area." Xi Chen led him to the rear of the dealership, where an orderly lot lay in stark contrast to the chaos of the wider market. Rows of new energy vehicles gleamed under the sun, each parked in neat, well-marked spaces with generous room between them. Everything felt deliberate, safe. Lin Yang grinned. "You even parked them separately. Smart move." Xi Chen forced a smile and shrugged. "Can't risk it. If a battery catches fire, it's hard to control. One burnt car could take out a whole row." They walked between the cars. Lin Yang's eyes scanned eagerly for a Weltmeister EX5. He spotted it tucked into a corner and quickened his pace. Just ahead, Xi Chen stopped by an EC6 and put on a salesman's face. "Good eye," he said brightly. "This one's nearly new, only 15 kilometers on it, and we're selling it at 20% off list price. Comes with full official benefits, great value." Lin Yang's smile faded a touch. He knew that brand new cars usually pick up around 15 kilometers from transport, inspections, and the like, so a nearly new car with 15 kilometers on the clock could well be essentially brand new. But he'd been reading stories online, rumors that some manufacturers funneled new cars into the used market to inflate sales figures and boost stock prices. He had been skeptical, but seeing this made him wonder. Disappointment flared. He had respected the brand's supposed high standards. Now, it felt like a betrayal, a manipulation of consumers and the market. He silently resolved to avoid any brand that resorted to those tactics and to warn others as well. "Haha, no," he said lightly, pointing past the EC6. "I wanted to look at the one next to it." "You mean the Weltmeister EX5? Xi Chen's eyes widened until they almost popped. His voice jumped several decibels as if he'd heard something impossible. He studied Lin Yang's face, searching for a joke, found none, and his expression hardened into worry. He grabbed Lin Yang's arm. "Classmate, I wouldn't say this to everyone, but Weltmeister's basically bankrupt. That car has no real after-sales support. If anything breaks, it's basically scrap. Don't be fooled by the specs. They're exaggerated." He grew serious, lowering his voice. "There was a Weltmeister owner whose battery malfunctioned while the car was still under warranty. The manufacturer refused to supply parts, and the 4S shop had shut down. The owner kept complaining, but got nowhere. People also say the car's software is buggy, systems crash, phone keys won't connect. If the central system goes down, a lot of the car becomes unusable. That's dangerous." Sweat beaded on Xi Chen's forehead as he spoke. He seemed to be picturing the worst-case scenarios. He went on. "The range is hugely overstated. A ride-hailing driver had a car advertised at 505 kilometers, but in actual use, city or highway, it only managed about 200 kilometers, and in winter barely a little over 100. Once it even ran out of power and died on the highway. Imagine being stranded like that on a long trip. And safety. Electric cars catching fire is a real issue, and Weltmeister's had its share of incidents. Once a battery goes up, the consequences are awful." His face was pale with concern as he described it, as if reliving the scenes in his head. Lin Yang listened without interrupting. Chapter 170. Hey, you lost a part on your car. I'll take that one. Even though Shi Chen had spent a long time listing the Weltmeister EX5's faults, Lin Yang didn't waver for a second. He had his own plan. The car's practical value was irrelevant. What mattered was the secret it contained, 10 kilograms of gold. No amount of criticism would change his mind. Shi Chen was taken aback by Lin Yang's determination. The car had been sitting on the lot for over a year. Back when Weltmeister was still in business, there had been occasional inquiries. After the company's collapse, it had been largely ignored. If any other customer wanted it, Shi Chen would have done his best to promote it. But Lin Yang was an old high school classmate. Though not particularly close, they were from the same county, and scamming someone from the same place would not look good. Still, Lin Yang insisted, so Shi Chen had no choice but to accept. He launched into a thorough rundown. This is a Weltmeister EX5, Explorer Edition 460. The official price was $199,800. He rattled off specs and numbers. Lin Yang kept silent. Showing too much eagerness might draw suspicion. After the spiel, Shi Chen softened his tone. You're an old classmate. I'll tell you the bottom price, $19,800. Lin Yang blinked. The car was from late 2022, only 3 years old, but the price had dropped to 1/10 of the original. Most people would wince at that kind of depreciation, but for him, the lower the price, the better. He wasn't buying it to drive. He wanted the gold inside. Okay, I'll take it. He kept his voice calm, though his heart raced. For $19,800, he could get gold worth $7.2 million, a roughly 360-fold return. Seeing Lin Yang still intent, Shi Chen stopped trying to talk him out of it and led him through the payment and contract signing. Lin Yang read each clause carefully, though he knew the real value of the car far exceeded the paperwork. Next, they went to the Vehicle Administration Office to transfer ownership. The process was tedious, queuing, submitting documents, verification, but Lin Yang had the patience of someone who knew what awaited him once it was done. Finally, the last stamp was made, and the car was officially his. He drove the Weltmeister away from the used car lot, planning to find a secluded spot to retrieve the gold and then casually sell the old car to a collector. After he left, one of Shi Chen's coworkers sidled up with a smirk. Your classmate looked like a big shot, so why did he buy the cheapest car in the shop? Another piped in, dripping with contempt. Yeah, he insisted on that Weltmeister without even checking it out. Maybe he doesn't know cars and wants to save money. He probably thought he could snag a bargain by choosing this junk. Their tones were low but sarcastic and unmistakable. Shi Chen bristled. He knew Lin Yang's background. His family had been poor, and 2 years after graduation, being able to buy a car was already an achievement. He didn't like his coworkers judging someone that way. What's wrong with buying a cheap car? He bought it with his own money. Shi Chen said quietly. He remembered Lin Yang in high school, diligent, top of his class despite hardship, with a stubborn will. The man in front of him now was more composed, confident, and clearly had plans. That convinced Shi Chen that Lin Yang's future couldn't be measured by the car he drove. Oh, so now you're defending him? The first man sneered. If he was really well off, why buy a cheap car? Driving that is embarrassing. He shrugged exaggeratedly, and some of the others laughed. Shi Chen's expression hardened. He met the man's eyes and said flatly, Embarrassing? When did buying something with your own hard-earned money become shameful? Do you have to pretend to be rich and buy beyond your means to avoid embarrassment? As salespeople, we've seen all kinds of customers. You can't judge them by appearances, much less mock them for choosing something affordable. The laughter died. The group fell awkwardly silent until the store manager arrived and smoothed things over. The coworkers dispersed, still muttering, but with less vigor. Shi Chen watched them go with a small sigh. He hoped the day would come when those guys would look at Lin Yang with respect. On the drive home, Lin Yang found the EX5 acceptable overall. Apart from being a little less refined in its driver assist features, it wasn't far off the M9 in many respects. Considering he had paid only a fraction of what an M9 would cost, he was satisfied. As he approached a primary school, he saw the speed bump in the distance and eased off the accelerator, braking gently. The car rolled onto the bump, but with a brutal thud, the body lurched violently. The jolt was worse than any bump he'd felt before. The suspension bucked wildly as if the car had been ridden by an unbroken horse. Lin Yang was flung upward and slammed down hard. His insides felt scrambled by the shock. An involuntary ouch escaped him. If this had been the M9, he would have felt almost nothing. He thought wryly, there's a reason expensive cars cost so much. Before he could finish the thought, a sharp clank echoed from beneath the car, cutting through the silence. His heart skipped. Something had come loose. A split second later, a car he hadn't noticed was suddenly right behind him. It accelerated and pulled up alongside. The passenger window rolled down slowly, and a driver grinned, calling out, "Hey, handsome, something fell off your car." "Thank you," Lin Yang called out, pulling his car to the side of the road. He got out and looked back. 2 palm-sized round rubber dust covers lay on the pavement. As a mechanical engineering student, he recognized them instantly as driveshaft dust caps. He frowned. Those covers falling off wouldn't have made such a loud noise. The sound had been heavy, like something solid dropping. An earlier tip had suggested there might be 10 kilograms of gold hidden in the driveshaft. Could that clatter have been the gold falling out? Lin Yang hurried over and found several gold bars scattered nearby, each stamped with 1,000 grams. 10 bars in all, exactly 10 kilograms. He tore off a piece of clothing, wrapped the bars in it, and carried them back to the car, packing them carefully inside. He thought the whole thing had happened without anyone seeing, but a passerby's camera had already recorded everything. A short video titled "Man Hides Gold Bricks Under Car, Spills Them Over a Speed Bump" spread like wildfire. In the clip, a Weltmeister EX5 crests a speed bump and a flash of gold drops from beneath it. The car pulls over. A pixelated man hops out, scoops up the bars, wraps them in his clothes, and drives off. 10 seconds of footage and the internet exploded. Comments and speculation poured in. "I counted 10 bars, at least 10 kilos, worth 7 or 8 million, one wrote. "What kind of person hides that much under a car?" joked another. Someone else suggested, half seriously, secret money hidden from his wife? The remark about value received thousands of likes. Others riffed on how wealthy the owner must be. A few female users, despite the pixelation, focused on the man's build. "Can't see his face, but he looks like a handsome guy. Want his babies," they gushed, and people laughed as the views, shares, and spin-off videos ballooned. Back at Yongcheng used car dealership in Zhongnan Automobile World, the showroom had quieted after Lin left. Salespeople idly scrolled their phones until one of them jerked upright, eyes wide. "You have to see this," he said, and the others gathered around. The Weltmeister EX5 in the clip made them sit up. One sharp-eyed salesperson pointed at the screen. "Doesn't that look like the unsellable EX5 we have?" They leaned in. Even the dent on the trunk matched, the same little gouge like a fingerprint. "Shichen, come look. Did you sell this morning?" someone called. Shichen came over and froze. The man was pixelated, but the build and the clothes looked like Lin Yang. The car in the clip looked extremely similar to the EX5 he'd sold that morning. The thought flickered, unpleasant and quick. Did Lin Yang know there was gold in the car? He told himself to calm down. "No," he said aloud. "The EX5 I sold this morning was newer than the one in the video." They compared notes and pictures, and the idea grew less likely. If there was gold in it, the last owner wouldn't have sold it, another salesperson argued. And that car's been in the store 2 years. Nobody even looked at it. One by one they shrugged, dismissed it as a coincidence, and went back to their phones. Still, Shichen felt uneasy. Something about the whole thing didn't sit right. At home, Li Ming was scrolling through videos when the same clip popped up. He froze, jaw-dropping. "That car, isn't that the one I saw at Yongcheng yesterday?" he whispered. Yesterday, bright sun, he'd gone to the dealership intending to buy. The EX5 had sat in a corner, thick with dust, looking forlorn. Knowing the Weltmeister brand was defunct, he'd mocked it in front of the salesperson, made a point of how awful it was. Now he watched the gold spill out and felt his face go cold with regret. He slapped his thigh. "How could I have been so blind?" he muttered, stomach sinking. "How did I not see there was a fortune in that car?" Chapter 172, New Random System Function. The gold hidden in the car had already been retrieved, so there was no reason to keep the vehicle. Lin Yang drove straight back to Zhongnan Automobile World and, this time, chose a completely different used car dealer. He didn't bother with small talk. He declared his intent to sell the car the moment he stepped in. The owner inspected it carefully, asked a few basic questions, and offered 8,000 yuan. Lin Yang knew that compared with what he could have gotten earlier, the car had lost about 12,000 yuan in less than 2 hours, but he didn't care. After all, the gold hidden in the car was worth over 7 million yuan. Trading a small cash loss for the safety of that gold and the peace of mind that came with it was a bargain. After the sale, Lin Yang walked lightly to his M9, parked outside the auto market. He sat in the familiar driver's seat, started the engine, and headed for Qingshuitang Antique Market. He went straight into Shangchun Restaurant, where the timeless atmosphere and the glow of antiques lining the walls always put him at ease. Scanning the room, he quickly found Lin Bayan. "Uncle Lin, I'm here," he said, approaching with a polite smile. Their interactions since the auction had made them closer, and Lin Yang no longer felt like a stranger. Lin Bayan looked up, surprised and pleased to see him. "Xiao Yang, you're finally here. Come, sit." Lin Yang didn't waste time. He carefully took the ancient book, bought from Xiangnan's richest man at auction, and handed it to Lin Bayan. "Uncle Lin, this book is a little unusual. There's a hidden layer inside. Could you find someone to peel it apart and see what's inside?" Lin Bayan took the book, eyes sharp with curiosity. He stroked the cover softly and nodded. "All right, I know some skilled old masters. They can peel the layer without damaging the book." He insisted Lin Yang stay for a meal. "You don't come by often. Stay and eat. Let's have a good chat." Lin Yang declined with a rueful smile. "I'm sorry, Uncle Lin. I've been swamped lately. I have other urgent matters to take care of. Next time, I promise." After saying goodbye, he stepped back into the bustling market street and sighed. The more wealth he accumulated, the less leisurely his life felt. Instead of easing his burdens, money had brought more responsibilities, dealing with unexpectedly acquired gold, arranging for ancient books, selling a mutated turtle bamboo found in demolition debris, and buying school district housing whose prices were about to soar. Making money felt great, but it was exhausting. He realized he needed a company. Only an organized team could distribute these tasks reasonably so professionals could handle what they do best, and he could focus on long-term planning. He thought of Binjiang No. 9, the unfinished building up for online auction. Even if he won it, renovations would take a long time before it could be used. It made more sense to register a company first and rent an office temporarily. He also remembered the island trip voucher he'd won. It was about to expire, and he'd promised to take his parents. They'd worked hard their whole lives. It was time they enjoyed a restful vacation. With that in mind, he pulled out his phone and called Hu Qian, someone he trusted to handle these matters. "Hello, Mr. Lin. What can I do for you?" Her clear voice answered. He noticed her tone had grown cooler since her last visit to his hometown, but didn't hesitate. "How are the preparations for registering the company coming along?" "All ready," she replied confidently. "All the registration documents are complete. If you have the time, you can submit them anytime. It should go smoothly." Relieved, Lin Yang asked another question. "Do you know of any offices for rent? I want to lease a place so we can start working as soon as the company is established." After a pause, she said, "The whole floor above our office is empty. With the economy how it is, it hasn't been rented. Our company is on the 49th floor of Binjiang Financial Building. That area is prime, great facilities and convenient transport." He was surprised that such a prime location had vacancies, but saw opportunity. With the intelligence system backing him, he felt confident the company would succeed. "Great, wait for me. I'm coming to take a look." He drove from the antique market to Binjiang Financial Building, picturing the firm's future growth as he went. At the building, he parked, strode in, and took the elevator to the 49th floor. At the front desk, he said, "Hello, I'm here to see Manager Hu." The receptionist recognized him. He'd been there before. She smiled. One moment, she picked up the phone and dialed. "Manager Hu, your boyfriend is here to see you." Hu Chan froze at the words. Boyfriend? She was single. Where did that come from? Lin Yang had said he was coming, so it must be him. A flush of disappointment rose in her chest. She wanted to be his girlfriend. He was exceptional, and she often felt she wasn't good enough. She swallowed, composed herself, and walked out with an enthusiastic smile. "Mr. Lin, long time no see," she greeted, offering her hand. When she touched him, a flurry of emotions stirred. "Long time no see," Lin Yang echoed, taking her hand. At that moment, the system's notification pinged inside his head. Ding, upon contact with an intelligence character, and due to their intense internal fluctuation because of you, a random system function will be unlocked. Chapter 173. Intelligence. Mark. It took Lin Yang a moment to come back to himself. He realized that whenever he caused some change in someone who had appeared in the system's intelligence, by contacting them, confiding in them, or otherwise stirring their emotions, he could trigger a critical hit, obtain higher value intelligence, or even unlock a new system function. So far, 2 people had shown up in the intelligence feed, Chen Qingqing and Hu Qian. Any significant emotional fluctuation in either of them could trigger a critical hit. He wondered what new function he'd just unlocked this time. Ding. Successfully unlocked a new system function. Mark. You may add custom tags to acquired intelligence, for example, to be verified, high value, useless. The system will intelligently recommend subsequent intelligence types based on tag history. After marking the same type of intelligence 5 times, the probability of that type appearing can be permanently increased or decreased by 5%. The new random function was an intelligence marking feature. After tagging the same type of intelligence 5 times, the appearance probability of that type could be adjusted by 5% permanently. He wasn't sure yet whether those adjustments could stack. If they could, it would be almost like steering the system to push the intelligence he wanted. For example, if he wanted more stock-related intel, he could tag stock items as stock. 1 intelligence, 1 tag. 5 tags would boost stock-related pushes by 5%. Conversely, tagging a type negatively 5 times would reduce its push probability by 5%. He'd have to test whether the effect was cumulative. Either way, the function was both practical and powerful. His luck had been good. Hu Qian's soft voice pulled him back to the present. She deftly handed him a neatly bound stack of documents. The cover was labeled clearly, and the contents were meticulously organized. Each page contained precise, accurate information: articles of association, lease agreements and venue certificates, the legal representative's ID, and thoughtful supplementary notes and precautions, like an all-inclusive registration guide. Lin Yang flipped through them with casual interest, then looked up approvingly. "Mr. Lin, all the company registration documents you requested are ready," she said. "Excellent work, Hu Qian. You've thought of everything. I'm really satisfied." He smiled genuinely. "I told you before I want you at my company. Have you given it some thought?" He'd seen how capable Hu Qian was, professionally responsible and impressively competent. Recruiting her would be a huge boon to the company's future. Hu Qian paused. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face. She didn't answer immediately. She bit her lip gently, eyes revealing a subtle indecision. His invitation had already pulled at her heart. Joining his new company promised a broader stage for her talents and great potential, but she worried. They'd been longtime friends. Would changing to a superior subordinate dynamic create workplace friction that could ruin their friendship? "Mr. Lin, I'm really touched that you think so highly of me." She spoke slowly and sincerely. "It's just, we've been friends for so long. I'm afraid that conflicts at work could come between us, and we might even lose the friendship." Lin Yang listened quietly, understanding. He smiled and reassured her. "I understand your worries, and I value our friendship too. But I believe if we stay professional and rational and set clear rules and procedures, we can avoid unnecessary conflicts. See this as an opportunity for us to chase our goals together. I've always respected your abilities, and I truly want to build a successful company with you." His words eased Hu Qian's concerns. She felt his sincerity and was drawn to the future he described. "You're right. I'll think about it seriously and let you know as soon as I decide." "Don't rush," he said. "Let me know when you've decided. By the way, you mentioned there are offices for rent upstairs. Could you show me?" Cleverly steering the conversation back to business, Lin Yang kept the pressure off her. "Sure, I'll take you up now," Hu Qian replied and led him to the elevator. They rode up in silence. Lin Yang watched the floor numbers tick by, anticipation building. Hu Qian stood beside him, occasionally glancing his way as if about to say something, but holding back. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened. They stepped out onto a mostly empty floor. A large sign reading Tuowei Network still hung prominently, but the office that had once been busy and bright now felt abandoned. A few pendant lights cast a cold glow over scattered debris, and a cluster of discarded documents in a corner, relics of past prosperity now echoing desolation. Lin Yang surveyed the space and sighed. Tuowei Network had once been a leader in Xing City's internet industry, producing popular games and software and commanding market share. Now, overwhelmed by the economy and cutthroat competition, the company had been forced to leave this space behind. Even a big company like Tuowei couldn't afford the rent here, he murmured. Hu Qian nodded, emotion in her expression. The economy's been rough these past years. Many companies are trimming expenses and leaving high-end office buildings. Ours is trying to reduce costs too. Lin Yang noticed a prominent notice on the wall. Entire floor for rent. Contact Manager Chen, phone number. He took out his phone and dialed the number. The call connected quickly. A clear female voice answered. Hello, Financial Building Property Management Department. Hello, I saw your notice about the entire floor for rent. How is it being leased? Lin Yang asked. Sir, are you on the 66th floor? She replied. Yes, that's right. Please wait a moment. I'll come right up. May I have your name, sir? My surname is Lin. Okay, Mr. Lin. She hung up, and they waited. About 10 minutes later, the elevator doors opened again. A young woman in her 20s stepped out wearing a property management badge. Her hair was pulled into a high ponytail, and her face was bright with youthful energy. Her features bore a passing resemblance to Chen Qingqing, the same bright, starry eyes, and for a second, Lin Yang nearly thought it was Qingqing. She saw them and walked over with a professional smile. Hello, are you Mr. Lin? I'm Xiao Chen from the Property Management Department. Chapter 174, 10% off. Rent it to him at 10%. Property manager Chen Zizi approached with a bright smile. Her steps were light and her ponytail bobbed as she moved, radiating youthful energy. She handed over a business card and launched into her pitch. This is the very top floor of the financial building. Hands down the best view in the whole complex. Look below. Binjiang Park and the Xiang River. Working here, you'll feel refreshed and energized every day. She gestured toward the panoramic windows with pride. This floor is essentially one open space with a single central support pillar, 2,000 square meters in total. If you wanted to subdivide it, you could easily make dozens of smaller offices. The rent is 600 yuan per square meter per month, with a minimum lease term of 1 year. Lin Yang took the card, his eyes catching the name, Chen Zizi. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind. Same surname, a vaguely familiar face. Could it be a coincidence? He asked, Do you know Chen Qingqing? Chen Zizi hesitated, then her surprise showed. You know my cousin? Lin Yang nodded. Inwardly, he thought there must be a connection. Chen Zizi, daughter of Xing City's wealthiest man, was used to people trying to forge ties. She suspected he might be doing the same. As a professional, she masked any reaction and smoothly changed the subject. She produced a key, unlocked the glass door, and led him inside. The office was all windows, floor to ceiling on every side, framing the river like a living painting. Sunlight poured in, turning the floor into warm patches of gold. The Xiang River glittered in the distance, boats cut across the water. Binjiang Park spread out in verdant shade, and people strolled along its paths. Lin Yang found himself drawn to the view, unexpectedly relaxed. The space felt expansive and calm. After the tour, Chen Zizi looked to him expectantly. So, what do you think? It's excellent, Lin Yang said sincerely. Top-tier environment. But is there any room to negotiate on the price? He had already done the math. 600 yuan per square meter for 2,000 square meters came to 1.2 million yuan a month. Many small companies wouldn't clear that in a year. The price wasn't impossible for him, but he believed in careful accounting, saving where possible, spending where necessary. He frowned slightly as he considered the rent. Chen Zizi shook her head with an apologetic smile. I'm sorry, sir. This is already a discounted rate. Originally, it was 900 yuan per square meter. We've reduced it to 600, so this really is our bottom line. Her tone left no room for further bargaining. Normally, if a client pressed, she might haggle, but her firmness made it clear there wasn't any leeway. Lin Yang prepared to leave and look elsewhere. Just then, Chen Zizi's phone buzzed. "Excuse me," she said. "I'll just take this." She stepped aside and answered. "Xiaozi, is Lin Yang looking at the top floor office?" Chen Qingqing's voice came urgent and clipped through the line. Chen Zizi sounded puzzled. "Who is Lin Yang?" "A very handsome man, well-built, great bearing, around our age," Chen Qingqing said, and the image clicked into Chen Zizi's mind. "Yes, there is such a person. Rent it to him at 10% of the price, 10%. Chen Qingqing's order was decisive, without a hint of hesitation. Chen Zizi stared, startled. "Cousin, what did you say? 10%. This is the top floor of the financial building." She had never expected such an instruction. In her view, the price such a discount implied was absurd, unreasonably low. This floor, with its location, view, and facilities, was one of the most sought after in Qing City. Inquiries occasionally turned into negotiations, but nothing like this. Chapter 175. Because you stepped into the building with your left foot, I give you a discount. I told you to give him a 90% discount. So give him a 90% discount, and find a decent excuse. Don't let him know it was my idea, Chen Qingqing ordered. Chen Zizi pouted. The whole building belonged to Chen Qingqing's family, so whatever she said went. Still, she couldn't help being curious why Qingqing was being so generous to Lin Yang. She teased, "Cousin, I've never seen you hand out discounts like this. Is Lin Yang your future brother-in-law or something?" Chen Qingqing frowned. She'd like that, but they weren't there yet. Only one step remained between them. Still, her relationship with Lin Yang had been getting closer, and she believed it wouldn't be long. "Not yet," she said, "but soon." "All right." Chen Zizi hung up, turned back, and told Lin Yang with a smile, "Mr. Lin, congratulations. You stepped into the financial building with your left foot today, so we've decided to give you a 90% discount on the rent." Lin Yang froze. The excuse was absurd, but the generosity was real. At first, there had been no discount. After one phone call, it suddenly jumped to 90%. It had to be because of that call. He thought through the people he'd recently dealt with. Only 2 people had that kind of clout. Chen Zhengguo, the richest man in Qing City, and Liang Dingan, the wealthiest man in Xiangnan province. Maybe the building belonged to one of them. Lin remembered saving Chen Zhengguo's life. Chen Zhengguo had collapsed while exercising in Binjiang Park. Everyone panicked. Lin Yang, relying on his intelligence system, called an ambulance in time and pulled him back from the brink. Chen Zhengguo had been deeply grateful. He'd given Lin a house in Binjiang Bay and had been looking for ways to repay him ever since. Chen always insisted that a life-saving favor couldn't be repaid with a house, not even the most luxurious mansion in Binjiang Bay. And then there was Liang Dingan. Lin had helped Liang recover a lost keepsake belonging to Liang's mother, an item of tremendous importance. At an auction later, Liang had spent $1 billion to win an ancient book Lin needed and handed it to him in thanks. If either of those men owned the financial building, this ridiculous 90% deal would make sense. Hu Chen, standing beside him, was wide-eyed. "The financial building is owned by Mr. Chen? Lin Yang, are you connected to Mr. Chen?" She blurted, the formality of Mr. Lin suddenly gone from her voice. She didn't notice the change in address. She only registered the math. The 66th floor rented for 1.2 million yuan a month. A 90% discount meant the rent would be 120,000, saving 1.08 million a month, nearly 13 million a year. Except for the building's owner, no one had the authority to grant such a steep cut. When Lin heard the name Chen, it clicked. The financial building belonged to Chen Zhengguo. An office of 2,000 square meters on the top floor for 120,000 a month, essentially being given away. Lin smiled and nodded. "Then I'm very lucky. I'll take it." "Okay." Chen Zizi made a call, and the rental contract arrived shortly after. Both parties signed, and the place was officially rented. Chapter 176. Old Classmates. Please. When Lin Yang signed the contract and officially gained the indefinite right to use the 66th floor of the Binjiang Financial Building, Hu Qian felt as if she were trapped in a surreal dream. Who would have imagined that a top-tier office with a market rent of 1.2 million a month would fall into Lin Yang's hands for only 10% of that, Just 120,000 a month. The luck was almost unbelievable. Lin Yang, your luck is unbelievable. Hu Qian's eyes widened in disbelief, her gaze full of admiration, as if she were looking at someone specially favored by a goddess of fortune. This is the best location in Xing City. So many people wanted it, but couldn't afford the rent, and you got it so easily and for so little. Unimaginable. She paced excitedly, hands gesturing in the air as she tried to express the shock and envy welling up inside her. Lin Yang smiled faintly and teased in a relaxed tone, "Maybe I've just been lucky lately." He knew, though, this was likely Chen Zhengguo's quiet help. He'd once saved Chen Zhengguo's life, and Chen had always remembered the debt. Still, Lin Yang didn't press the matter. It was a kindness to accept gracefully and repay later if the chance arose. Taking the key, he brightened. "Come on, let's go tour the floor properly." They walked down the wide, sunlit corridor. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city rolled out in all directions. Skyscrapers clustered together, streets full of people weaving like threads, the whole city brimming with life. As he moved, Lin Yang began sketching the office layout in his head. When they reached a spot with excellent light, space, and an unobstructed panoramic view, his eyes lit up. "This will be my office," he said without hesitation. "Working here will be fantastic." Hu Qian looked around and couldn't help but exclaim, "You really know how to enjoy life. This location is perfect. Open view, great lighting. Working here every day will definitely boost productivity." Lin Yang shrugged and smiled. "Isn't the point of making money to live well? A better environment motivates people." He outlined a general plan for the rest of the floor and asked Hu Qian to find a reliable design firm to renovate according to his ideas. She nodded, making mental notes and secretly admiring his ambition. He was young but bold, and she believed his future would be limitless. Together, they continued to detail the space. "This area has good light and is spacious. I'll set it up as an open-plan workspace so employees can work in a bright, communicative environment," he explained, pointing out where desks and workstations would go. In a quieter corner, he paused. "This will be the meeting room, private and away from the bustle." Hu Qian agreed, impressed by his planning. He designated rooms for finance, archives, and a lounge, describing renovation requirements down to wall colors, flooring materials, furniture style, and appliance placement. Hu Qian recorded every point in her notebook, afraid of missing anything. Lin Yang emphasized comfort and aesthetics, scattered green plants to purify the air and bring life to the office, art and corporate slogans on the walls to cultivate an uplifting atmosphere. "A good office affects people's mood and efficiency. I want it to feel productive but also warm, like home," he said. They finished exhausted but excited, their faces alight with anticipation. This office held their dreams, and Lin Yang believed it would soon become a vibrant, creative workplace. With the office plan settled, Lin Yang took his documents and headed straight to the Xing City Government Affairs Hall to register his company. The hall was bright and busy. He paused at the entrance to find the registration counter. Then a familiar voice called from behind. "Lin Yang? Is that you?" He turned to see a slightly overweight man hurrying toward him with a broad smile, his university classmate, Shi Kong. Lin Yang hadn't expected to encounter him and noticed how much weight he'd gained in the last month. Shi Kong, beaming, grabbed Lin Yang's arm as if they were old brothers reunited. "What a coincidence. I didn't expect to run into you here. What brings you?" he asked, nodding at the document bag in Lin Yang's hand. "I'm here to register a company," Lin Yang said. Shi Kong's face brightened. "No wonder. I come here a lot. I know the procedures well. Don't worry, with me here, you'll get through this smoothly." He practically dragged Lin Yang toward the counter, behaving as if he owned the place. Along the way, he chatted, asking after Lin Yang's life, but probing subtly for information about his connections. Shi Kong suspected that someone brave enough to start a business must have powerful backing, and he was eager to attach himself to any opportunity. At the counter, Shi Kong transformed into a model of efficiency. He greeted the staff like an old friend, took Lin Yang's documents, and expertly organized them, double-checking every item and asking the clerks detailed questions to ensure nothing was missing. What had seemed tedious and complicated became straightforward under his care. While they waited for the review, Kong busied himself photocopying supplements and asking about related matters, his face constantly lit with an eager smile that drew odd glances from others. Lin Yang watched him work, aware of his motives, but grateful for the help. After a flurry of orderly activity, the registration was complete. The clerk handed Lin Yang a stack of brand new certificates and documents. "Congratulations, Mr. Lin. Your company is registered," she said with a smile. A surge of pride and joy swelled in Lin Yang's chest. Kong grinned beside him, part congratulation and part relief. "Haha, Lin Yang, congratulations. See? Smooth sailing. If you need anything in the future, just ask. Old classmates should help each other." He clapped Lin Yang on the shoulder to show his sincerity. Lin Yang looked at him and understood the undertone. Regardless, Kong had been immensely helpful today. He smiled and replied, "Thank you, Kong. I really appreciate it. When the company opens, you should come celebrate." Kong's eyes sparkled. He took that as a sign their relationship had deepened. "Absolutely. I'll be there. It'll be an honor to attend your opening ceremony." Chapter 177, Black PR Group Undercover. When Lin Yang left the government office after registering the company, the clock had just passed 5. He climbed into his car exhausted but elated and drove home. As soon as he stepped through the door, the smell of a home-cooked meal hit him. His mother had already set a plentiful dinner on the table and was waiting with a smile. The family gathered around the table. The room hummed with warmth and ordinary comfort. Lin Yang ate while his parents chattered about their day. "Xiaoyang, did you know? Chen Qingqing took us up Mount Lu today. She's such a thoughtful girl," his father said, setting down his chopsticks with a relieved, happy smile. "She helped carry things and looked after us the whole way. More considerate than our son even," his mother added, glancing at Lin Yang with an expectant look. "At the top, she took lots of photos for us to keep. Good girls like that are hard to find." And his father said fondly. "You really need to make your move, Xiaoyang," his mother said, meaning more than the words implied. Lin Yang smiled and nodded, but didn't say more. He knew his parents were right. Chen Qingqing was kind, gentle, and filial, but he didn't want to rush matters of the heart. After dinner, the family sat in the living room for a while, trading small talk. The ordinary domestic scene felt precious, but Lin Yang had one pressing task in mind. He excused himself and went back to his room. Once inside, he closed the door gently and went straight to his desk. He opened his panel and navigated to the intelligence section on Black PR. Hidden in an obscure corner of the data was a mysterious QR code, the entry to a Black PR group. His fingers trembled slightly as he scanned the code. Almost immediately, a response appeared. He had to complete a questionnaire first. Only a score of 90 or above would allow him into the group chat. Lin Yang frowned. This wasn't an ordinary quiz. Each question could be a test, even a trap. One misstep, and he'd be rejected. He steadied himself and read every question carefully. The questionnaire ranged widely: opinions on online public opinion, assessments of various brands, even some seemingly random general knowledge items. Lin Yang knew there were deeper meanings behind them. "How do you view the recent negative news about a certain brand?" the screen asked. Lin Yang thought for a moment, recalled the material he'd already gathered, and typed cautiously. "It looks like an organized smear campaign with little factual basis." Another question asked which brands were most likely to have PR problems. Lin Yang selected the name he'd seen repeatedly targeted. Minute after minute passed. Sweat beaded on his forehead. He typed quickly, eyes glued to the screen, not wanting to miss anything. Finally, he submitted the responses. His heart thudded as he waited. The seconds stretched painfully. After more than 10 minutes, a green message flashed. "Congratulations, your score is 100. You have successfully joined the group chat." Relief washed over him. He let out a long breath and forced a smile, but he stayed on edge. He had just stepped into a dangerous, shadowy world and needed to be careful. He scanned the group information closely. 1 owner, 9 administrators, and 990 members. The rules were strict. Only the owner and administrators could post tasks. Ordinary members were muted. When a task was posted, members completed it as instructed, then sent screenshots and links to a designated account to collect payment. The process looked simple, but the implications were ugly. As he was reading the rules, a task suddenly appeared from an administrator called Little Ox Says Cars. Lin Yang focused on every word. Smear 3YC in comments. Pay starts at 4 yuan per post. More likes and replies equals higher pay, plus 1 yuan per 100 likes. If someone replies to argue, keep attacking, 0.5 RMB per argument. Submit screenshots and forward the comment link to customer service. Deleted comments won't be paid. For more controversy, follow these prompts when commenting. 1. After buying a 3YC car, people pull on my car door every day. 2. Master, the last 6 digits are 123456. 3. 3YC is a sweatshop. During the Dragon Boat Festival, 1 zongzi and 2 bottles of cola. Anger flared in Lin Yang's chest at how mercilessly these people fabricated and amplified lies for money. But under the anger was a sharper feeling, excitement. This was crucial evidence, exactly the kind of proof he'd been looking for to expose black PR operations. He opened his screen recording software and captured everything, every line, every punctuation. This evidence alone would be worth at least 5 million. But he didn't report it immediately. 10 people in the group could post tasks. If he collected all evidence from all 10 and reported them together, the payout to 3YC would be much larger, 50 million. Alerting them now would likely get him only the single agent reward. So he kept digging. One by one, the owner and the other 8 administrators released smear tasks. Lin Yang recorded and saved everything, methodically cataloging the evidence. Just as he had a complete set and was about to submit it to 3YC, a notification appeared on his phone. You have been removed from the group chat. He stared at the message, baffled. Had they discovered him? He hadn't posted anything, only recorded the posts. How could they have known? His phone rang. He glanced at the screen, an unfamiliar number. Reflexively, he hung up. The call came again immediately. A voice on the other end said calmly, "Is there a chance to talk?" Lin Yang froze. It was them. The people behind the black PR. He checked the time. It had only been a little over 10 minutes since he'd joined. Before he'd reported anything, before he'd had a chance to act, they somehow knew he'd been collecting evidence and called him. The reach and power of whoever controlled that group were suddenly terrifying. Chapter 178, I Hate Being Threatened. Who are you? How do you know about me? Lin Yang kept his voice steady, though there was suspicion and displeasure beneath it. He wanted to draw more from the caller. You don't need to know who I am. Just know this. Don't report anything for now. Whatever you ask for, I'll give you. The voice didn't answer Lin Yang's question. Instead, it dangled an inducement trying to buy his silence. You'll give me whatever I ask for. Lin Yang pretended to be interested, letting a faint greed flicker into his tone. Yes, yes. The voice was quick, urgent, as if afraid Lin Yang might not take it seriously. Then if I ask for 500 million, you'll agree to that too? A cold little smile curved Lin Yang's mouth. He reminded himself that the black PR itself wasn't his business. If he decided to get involved, it was only because there might be a 50 million reward for exposing them. If this caller was willing to pay, he could have chosen not to report. Still, he wasn't about to be bullied. Don't mistake my politeness for weakness, he said. Do what I ask, or there'll be consequences you can't bear. The man on the other end boiled over at once. His voice went hard and threatening. Lin Yang's expression darkened. He hated being threatened. He steeled his mind. He absolutely could not make a reckless move now. One mistake could put him in danger and ruin the evidence he'd spent so long gathering. So he switched tactics and made his voice tremble with fear. Please, big brother, don't hurt me. I'm really scared. My parents are elderly and sick. They rely completely on me. I'll do whatever you say. Just don't hurt them or me. Lin Yang's heart measured minutes as he spoke. Every second that passed brought him closer to submitting the files to 3YC and the police. The caller seemed pleased. He gave a triumphant, mocking laugh. Good, you've got sense. As long as you behave, I'll guarantee you and your family are safe. But don't try anything. We're watching your every move. If you act dishonestly, you know what happens. Then the line went dead. Lin Yang sat for a moment, eyes steady with resolve. He set the phone down, stood, and pulled a corner of the curtain aside to look out. The street below was quiet. Under the pale streetlights, a few people hurried past. Everything looked normal, but he knew there were probably eyes in the shadows. He didn't dare relax. Back at his desk, he methodically began the final work, organizing and backing up every piece of evidence. Screen recordings, screenshots, chat logs. He copied them to multiple storage devices and encrypted everything so only he and trusted contacts could access it. As he worked, the caller's threats looped in his mind and his anger burned hotter. He vowed to make whoever was behind the black PR pay. If they'd threatened him already, it would only get worse after a report. After a tense flurry of activity, the job was done. More than 10 minutes had passed since the call. There was no time to waste. Lin Yang picked up his phone and called the number for 3YC, the company that handled black PR complaints. The line connected, and he explained who he was and the evidence he had, offering to submit everything immediately. The 3YC staff treated the matter seriously. They assigned a dedicated contact to work with Lin Yang and promised to verify and process the materials as quickly as possible. Outside Jing City, a luxurious villa sat hidden among dense trees, its European facade imposing and grand. Inside, crystal chandeliers made the living room as bright as day. At a large rosewood round table, flanked by leather sofas, 5 men held tall glasses of deep red wine, swaying them and laughing as if nothing could touch them. Li Qiang, known in their circles as Boss Qiang, was among them. Tall and dressed in a black suit, he had just hung up the phone. A self-satisfied grin split his face. He tossed his phone onto the table, sipped his wine, and laughed loudly. Ha! I thought he had more backbone. One threat, and he folds. What a coward! Next to him, a thin man with gold-rimmed glasses, Wang Hui, the team strategist, pushed his glasses up his nose and said quietly, a worried edge to his voice, "Boss Chiang, I just checked. This guy lives in one of the best neighborhoods in Qing City. Either he's rich or well-connected. Aren't you worried about provoking him?" Li Qiang's expression flickered, but he quickly reasserted his swagger. He slammed his glass down with a bang and barked, "Worried? So what if he's rich? He's nothing to me. With our backer, who can touch us? Relax, you're worrying over nothing." A man with yellow-dyed hair and a loud floral shirt in the corner chimed in, grinning, "Exactly. Even the police give us leeway. What can a little Lin Yang do?" Their laughter swelled as they imagined the payday ahead. Li Qiang leaned back, legs crossed, indulging in fantasies of spending their ill-gotten gains. They were already celebrating when sudden, heavy footsteps thundered outside the villa, cutting through the room like a blade. The front door smashed inward, and a team of heavily armed police flooded the room, surrounding the 5 men. Faces were set, weapons gleamed, and an officer's voice rang out with absolute authority. "Nobody move. Hands on your head. Squat down." Li Qiang and the others didn't resist. They obeyed immediately, hands on their heads, lowering themselves to the floor as officers moved in to secure them. Chapter 179. Award rewards according to the highest standards. Inside 3YC's public relations department, the air was as heavy as the calm before a storm. Minister Wang Ji sat at the head of the conference table, his brow knotted, his face worn with anxiety and exhaustion. He slowly scanned the room, then spoke in a low, strained voice. "Since we took over handling the online negative publicity against 3YC, things haven't improved. They've gotten worse. Rust, ride-hailing complaints, power loss, accusations of abandoning loyal customers. These negative stories are snowballing. Every time we handle one problem, another pops up. At the group meeting this afternoon, the chairman severely criticized me. If this goes on, I won't even have the face to stay in my position, let alone wait for the chairman to ask me to resign." The conference room fell silent. The staff bowed their heads, unwilling to meet Wang Ji's eyes. They all knew they'd worked hard, but they couldn't stem the tide of criticism. The sense of helplessness was pervasive. Wang Ji's phone buzzed. He checked it. His expression darkened. Another smear article had just been published, and its readership and shares were climbing fast. He flung the phone onto the table. The sharp bang broke the silence. "These black PR operations are rampant. They're like venomous snakes hiding in the dark. We have no idea where they'll strike next." Just as the room fell into an uneasy stasis, Wang Xi's assistant hurried in and whispered in his ear. The change in his face was immediate. He shot to his feet. A whistleblower called with clues and evidence about the black PR. "This is our lifeline. We must seize it." He ordered relevant staff to make contact with the whistleblower and keep lines open to secure the evidence. Based on the whistleblower's leads, the police had been alerted and several people were detained. But after more than 10 minutes, the whistleblower fell silent. Calls and messages went unanswered. Without the evidence, those arrests could be for nothing. Wang Ji paced in front of the table, each heavy step mirrored by the anxiety in the room. He stared at his phone as if it would suddenly light up with the whistleblower's return. Occasionally, he stopped and rubbed his face, trying to calm himself, but the worry surged like a tide that wouldn't recede. Around the table, people fidgeted. Pens spun on fingertips. Others checked their phones every few seconds, afraid to miss any message from the whistleblower. Small groups huddled and whispered, voices tight with unease. "How long has it been? Why is there no news?" one employee muttered, a deep furrow cutting his brow. "Maybe they're bought off," another replied, despair in his voice. "If that's the case, all our work will be for nothing." Every second of waiting felt stretched into an hour. The ticking clock hammered in everyone's ears. Eyes flicked to the conference room door, hoping the whistleblower would appear with the long-awaited file. Then, a young employee's computer pinged. He glanced down, and his dull expression snapped into surprise. He leaped to his feet, waving his arms and shouting at the top of his lungs, "We received the evidence! We have evidence of the black PR!" The shout exploded in the room like a stone dropped into a still lake. The oppressive gloom shattered. The staff, who had been curled inward with anxiety, straightened and erupted with relief. Several people surged toward the computer, elbows and chairs clattering in the rush. One person was so excited he knocked his chair over and kept cheering. Another stood stunned for a moment, then broke into a wide smile and whispered, "Thank God! Thank God!" Some had tears in their eyes from the sudden lift of hope. Wang Ji, who had been pacing, froze at the sound. The strain on his face melted into something like disbelief, then a bright, hot hope. He lunged over in 3 quick steps, gripping the young employee's shoulders, his voice trembling with excitement. "Really? Open it. Show me." Everyone crowded around the screen as the file was opened. Page after page displayed the evidence. Smiles spread across the room like sunlight. "This is crucial," one staffer declared, slapping the table so hard the sound rang. "Now those behind the black PR can't escape," another said through clenched teeth, equal parts righteous anger and satisfaction. Tears of relief welled for some. "Our work hasn't been for nothing. We can fight back," someone choked, wiping at his eyes. People embraced, arms slung over shoulders, sharing strength and joy. The room erupted into cheers. Someone suggested they mark the moment with a slogan. The group shouted it in unison, neat and loud, "Combat Black PR, defend 3YC." The cry had force, as if it could crush the conspiracy itself. Wang Ji's face lit up with pride and relief. His grin revealed white teeth and his eyes sparkled. He looked at his team, the long hours and tireless effort behind them, and felt the moment's weight. "Everyone worked hard. This is a great achievement," he said, voice thick with emotion. "This isn't just a counterattack against black PR. It's a victory for our PR department. It proves our strength and value." To capture the celebration, people pulled out their phones and began filming. In the little screen, smiling faces and tight embraces froze the moment of triumph that had dissolved the months of pressure. Wang Ji took control of practical matters. "Reward the person who provided this evidence at the highest standard. Do it quickly." "Yes, I'll contact them right away and get the bounty to them within 24 hours, the staffer in charge replied, eyes set with determination and efficiency. Chapter 180, Unfinished Building Auction. Within half an hour of submitting the evidence, Lin Yang received a link from 3YC asking him to provide his bank card information. He didn't hesitate and quickly sent the details. Not long after, his phone buzzed with a bank transfer notification. Opening his mobile banking app, he saw the transfer amount, 50 million yuan, clearly displayed on the screen. The string of numbers felt unreal. His heart raced. "I didn't expect 3YC to be this efficient," he murmured, a faint smile on his lips. These 50 million yuan were more than just a huge sum. They were proof that his plan had worked and been executed precisely. The next day, Lin Yang opened Douyin as usual and was met with non-stop coverage about 3YC. In an age of information overload, the internet was a public square where any ripple could become a storm. News of 3YC's takedown of black public relations outfits had exploded online, quickly topping the trending lists. Related topics racked up hundreds of millions of views. The comment sections were alive with clashing opinions. You said there'd be a reward for reporting. Where's the whistleblower? Are you pocketing the money? One user demanded. The comment drew thousands of likes and many replies. To them, 3YC's refusal to disclose the whistleblower smacked of secrecy, maybe even embezzlement. Too opaque. Who knows if they actually paid anyone? Maybe it's all a show, another wrote, skepticism thick in the tone. Such doubts weren't isolated. Many people pressed 3YC for fuller disclosure. Some comments turned hostile, even personal, making the atmosphere tense. 3YC's public relations team answered swiftly with a long statement explaining why they hadn't revealed the whistleblower's identity. They cited privacy and safety concerns. People who expose black PR networks often face retaliation, and leaking personal information could expose whistleblowers to threats. Protecting those individuals' safety and rights, they said, was a long-standing principle. To bolster credibility, 3YC listed past cases of retaliation after leaks and promised that the reward had been fully paid, offering transfer records and contracts as proof and expressing willingness to cooperate with any investigation. The explanation calmed some, but not all. A portion of netizens remained skeptical, demanding even more evidence. The debate churned on. Lin Yang scrolled through the comments and let a slight sneer cross his face. To him, the online clamor was temporary. His identity and safety were secure, and 3YC would honor its promise to keep him confidential. He closed Douyin and refocused on the Binjiang No. 9 auction. Binjiang No. 9 was an unfinished building on the riverbank, an abandoned giant that, despite its dilapidation, still boasted a prime location. The river breeze brushed the facade, and the sunlight turned the water into a sheet of gold. Lin Yang's information suggested housing prices there would spike soon, and he intended to capitalize on that. The online auction was set for 10 a.m. He had registered early and submitted the required 1 million yuan deposit. Now he sat in front of his computer, eyes fixed on the screen, waiting for the bidding to begin. At the same time, a company in the Binjiang Financial Building in Qing City was a hive of tension. A leader stood before a group of employees with a stern expression. "Today's task is crucial," he said in a low, forceful voice. "The auction is for Binjiang No. 9. You must use your techniques, but measure your moves. We need to drive the price up while making sure the intended participants can actually win the bid. If this property ends up stuck in our hands, it will be a disaster." "Yes," the employees answered in unison, a mix of nerves and determination in their voices. They knew the stakes. Get into position. The auction is about to start. The leader waved them back to their desks. Computers opened, screens glowed, fingers hovered over keyboards. A war without smoke was about to begin.